Hello again, Cons here. Just wanted to mention that I'm still moving into my parents' place because of the whole quarantine situation. So yeah, my audio setup is still completely scuffed. I'm really sorry about that. Hopefully I'll get it sorted soon, but if there's like a beeping noise in the background, please accept my sincerest apologies. But anyway, after the feedback from the previous video where I commentated over a Furious Rajang speedrun and I sort of asked people whether or not they wanted to see more commentated speedruns or just regular ones, well, the feedback seemed to be that you wanted commentary, so I thought I'd go over it here. The first point has sort of come up immediately, which is you can see that I have 25 stones. I'm using stone thrower. This is kind of a standard strategy. If you have 1 point of stone thrower, then stones and crystal bursts allow you to do 2 flint shots worth of shots. Now the other thing I'm doing here is a trick that I saw from the Morales speedrun, which is that if you tenderize the arms and the chest and stuff, then when you flint shot Kulve into a wall, it actually breaks those parts, which exposes the nicer hit zone. Because otherwise, a lot of the time, when you sort of use your true raw attacks over the gold plating, you do a lot less damage than you could be. So the initial strat for this is to just tenderize the 3 hit zones, and then to immediately flint shot Kulve twice if possible. And you can see I've gotten quite lucky with its positioning. Now it does have a tendency to sort of move around a lot, so be sure to use the one claw sort of face readjustment that you have. But remember, you only get access to one of those if you're doing 2 flint shots. And there you go. So we've got now 2 flint shots. And you can see it's broken. Now I'm using Dawn Pods for the ability to load up TCSs. Unfortunately, I think I whiff a couple here in a row, but it's not a big deal. I also get quite a lucky cat. Now this is the other thing I should mention. First of all, obviously all the shinies on the ground, so be sure to pick those up if you're playing casually. But yeah, I have my cat with paralysis on it because personally I found paralysis to be the most convenient status to have on it. I don't know if sleep would be slightly better, but at least for me I was often getting 2 paralyses per proc, which was really convenient. Yeah, so the tail swipe. You can see I'm playing a little bit fast and loose, just sort of throwing TCSs out there. I found that that's the most convenient thing to do when you've got Rocksteady loaded up. Is just to sort of charge through attacks and tank through everything, but I guess you probably know this by now. And yeah, so you want to hit the chest and the 2 arms. Once you get molting, and you can skip that step where it's not molted by using, I think you can mount it, and then it seems to skip that stage entirely, but I haven't really incorporated that into my runs yet. But yeah, so popping on my evasion mantle now that Rocksteady has run out, and now at this point you have to play a little bit more intelligently, although at least the first phase should be mostly over. The tail swipe pair you can usually get a level 3 charge off. I was trying to do something more clever, but unfortunately I got interrupted by a clagger. No big deal though. And unfortunately that's the kind of thing that just happens. Kulve is so large that any one of its animations can sort of take it halfway across the map, and so you kind of have to deal with the fact that you might just whiff because Kulve decides to be in a slightly different position. A little bit lucky there, but you know, you gotta take the ones you can get. Now this run has a fairly good phase 1 and phase 2, but not, also I'm not entirely sure how Kulve's mechanics works. I didn't do much Kulve grinding in high rank, so yeah, I know there's a way to knock it over out of those animations by using slinger ammo, but I don't entirely understand how it works. But yeah, now that he's moving to the next area, just be sure to sharpen in the transition, pop a cold drink, whatever you need to do, maybe tenderize, and then get ready for the second phase. So here the game plan is very similar. Now that I've tenderized the face, I want to get 2 flint shots off. And I guess I didn't really mention this earlier, but Kulve doesn't get knocked over when you flint shot it. As you've seen, it just sort of does this stunned animation where it stands there for a few seconds. And that gives you ample opportunity to flint shot again. You can't do it too quickly, otherwise it's sort of the animation just eats the flint shot. So you've got to wait a second or two. But it really is not that long. And you also don't want to wait too long, otherwise Kulve can move out of the way. But yeah, 2 flint shots will get it into rage mode. You can see here no Rocksteady, so I'm going to use the shoulder bash. Now I'm not very good with greatsword. I usually play a 4U or like an old world crit draw playstyle, which is the reason you don't see me abusing the shoulder bash as much as I should. Obviously if you're good at doing that, then you should probably take advantage of it, but the fact that I can get a sub 10 run with this playstyle should at least give you some hope maybe. But yeah, back to using dung pods. Now, so yeah, I've got my 2 flint shots. The next plan is to at some point use the stalactites on top. You definitely don't want to miss those. That's a free 2,500 damage, which is like a evasion mantle full TCS landed, which is really not something you want to be able to miss. Now there, if I'd been smart, I could have shoulder bashed and then done a strong charge there, but you know, I'm really not good at that move. Yeah, now when you get the stalactite opening, it's a little bit longer than the other openings. I don't know if I'm going to cut that out. But yeah, it's long enough to usually get off 2 TCSs if you start one off with a flint shot in my experience. Got a little bit lucky there with the positioning, but you know how it is. I mean, I usually land that. It doesn't miss very often, so it's fine. And the other thing is crystal bursts. Again, as I mentioned, stone thrower means that you get 6 of them rather than 5, and a flint shot only consumes 5, which is the way I was able to get both my flint shots off in the start. You can sort of abuse the long animation. If you don't have stone thrower, you have to go and refresh your slinger ammo and pick up some more, which is doable. It's fine, but it does mean that you can't really take advantage of the fact that Kulve has that sort of cooldown animation, which is basically 2 free flinches. Now, obviously, you would carve the horns, but I was going for a run here, so no such luck. Now, I'm not sure if I recommend tenderizing here. I've noticed that Kulve tends to go into rage mode when I do this, and I'd really want to get, yeah, like you can see here, I'd much prefer to get my 2 slinger flint shots off, so I don't know. But you can see that's the reason I stocked up on crystal bursts, rather than just relying on my dung pods, because you can't flint shot with dung pods. I grabbed crystal bursts because I wanted to be able to get 2 flint shots off, but I wasn't so lucky. Now, the other thing you should keep in mind, something I don't know if I demonstrated in this run. However, you can kind of tank through the lava whether or not you have Rocksteady Mantle on, if you're sort of in the middle of a TCS charge. The Great Sword, if you have Health Augment on it, does a lot of damage. And especially if you have some points of recovery up, you can kind of just tank through the tick damage if you're positioned nicely and have enough health to land a big hit. But yeah, this final phase actually wasn't particularly good. I might add in or edit in the final phase of a previous run. I get kind of unlucky here, and I'm not very good at iframing this move yet. And because this run was really good, well, not really good, but because this run was one of my best so far, I wasn't really willing to risk iframing that move, the big slam. But you should definitely consider doing that. And unfortunately, yep, if I'd landed that TCS, this run probably would have been sub 8, which is sub 9, sorry, which is really infuriating. But what can you do? You see how long this topple is? That would have been enough to land another charge slash and true charge, strong charge slash. But yeah, usually in this final phase, what I do is I try and land my TCSs off. Hopefully, Rocksteady's recovered by now. If it hasn't, no big deal. But what you can do is focus the back legs. Obviously, trading is just kind of a thing that you do when you can. But yeah, if you focus the back legs, you'll get some topples like the one that we saw previously. You can see me just checking for checking for my Rocksteady because it makes the fight so much easier. Still not sure how to dodge this move consistently. I've just been sort of keeping an eye on the ceiling and Superman diving. I've seen some runners who just like completely know where they're going to be, so maybe there's a trick to it, but I don't know it yet. And again, you see I try and use the trick that knocks him out of that move, but it didn't work. That said, I did have Thorn Pods there, which is fine because it means that I'll hopefully get a KO if I'm lucky. Although knowing my luck, I probably am not. And yeah, you can see I'm going for the back and the front legs where possible, just because I want to try and get one of those topples. Depending on how lucky you are with your damage spread over the previous phases, it can actually be really close to topples on both legs right at the start of the hunt. You can see I tried to do the roll into shoulder charge there. Not very smart of me, but whatever. Yeah, this final phase is kind of a disappointment if I'm being honest with you. There's a lot of room for improvement here. And whilst I was kind of tempted to not post this run, I'm really sick of fighting Kulve. So I just sucked it up and posted this one. But just think of this as, you know, possibility for getting a better run yourself and getting an even lower time. Especially if you don't get lucky with like the flint shots at the start. But yeah, once Rocksteady's on, the fight is basically free. You just throw out TCSs. Kulve tends to aggro onto you quite well. I was wondering with the cat whether or not I should drop it so that I could maintain aggro 100%. However, the paralysis weapon and the Maracano just kind of seemed worth it in my opinion. Unfortunately here I get a little bit unlucky. It's basically the one move that Kulve can do that fucks me when I'm loading up a TCS like that. And of course, juicy whiffs. But what can you do? Yeah, this was I was panicking by the end of this run, unfortunately. This run could have easily been a sub 9, but yeah, because the first 2 phases went so well and a lot of my runs stopped there because of bad AI, I was really panicking in the middle of this. And I am a bit aware, sort of acutely, that the commentary now is a little bit rambly and I don't have much to say. But, I don't know, I'm basically just keeping it running just in case I think of anything important. Anyway, there we go. Unfortunately, I broke the horns in the second area, or fortunately, I guess, depending on your perspective. Which means that I cannot carve them in time. The 60-second timer is a little bit annoying given that you have to carve Kulve's body several times and also have like 4 carves from the horns. It's quite difficult to fit it in unless you get lucky with where you break them. But it's okay, this was just a run anyway. Let me just make sure that the time was what I expected it to be. 1 second. Yeah, there we go. So 9 minutes 20 seconds. Again, this could easily have been sub 9. But probably like 3 out of 4 of my runs just stop right at the start because Kulve doesn't play along. it doesn't stand close enough to a wall for me to get my flint shots off, and it takes like a minute to get to line up properly, or it just spams the rolling move or the lava breath, and so I don't get my rocksteady TCSs off. It's just the AI, this fight is quite dependent on the AI, in my opinion, on how lucky you get, and so that's quite frustrating. So yeah, a lot of my runs don't get through the first phases, which is the reason that a run like this that had a good first 2 phases and a bit of a shaky last phase, I'm willing to accept it. So I've got the set on screen again. As you can see, I'm running a pretty standard range of DPS skills for Greatsword. Nothing particularly out of the ordinary here, aside from maybe slinger capacity. Crit boost is sort of self-explanatory. Now the thing about Agitator is it's especially good in this fight because you're obviously going to be flint shotting a lot to get it into rage mode nearly instantly. And the final phase of Kulve is actually 100% perma enraged. A mate was telling me, Sam was saying that the moment it de-enrages in final area, that's how you know it's about to flee. So yeah, it's constantly enraged, which means you're basically... Agitator is just a flat 28 raw, 20 affinity. It's a really good skill to have on this fight especially. So yeah, a nice mixture of Brachydium and Master's Touch. I was considering using some sort of peak performance variant, and it might be more DPS, but I'll be honest with you, this is the set I had made, and so I just sort of stuck with it. Focus is quite important to get off the TCSs, I think, for some of the better exploits, and you should have a look at maybe like Morales' run for the optimal openings. I'm not great at using the shoulder bash, but focus can be quite important for those. For some of the openings that I was using, I actually had a little bit of spare time, or a little bit of RNG. You could see though, there were quite a few openings I exploited where Kulve was just about to move as I was using them. So I would definitely recommend running 3 points of focus on this set. Now it could be worth running a Frostcraft Greatsword build, sort of abusing the crit draws type game style. I do prefer that generally, however, with Kulve, you really want to just get as much DPS unloaded on those horns in the final phase while it's on the ground as possible. And so the ability to exploit with as much DPS as you can while it's down is probably the sort of biggest difference maker in the fight. And so I prefer to use something that exploits TCSs and spams dung pods for the quick animation. But yeah, I think that's all I really have to talk about. This was a little bit more rambly than my Furious Rajang video. It's because there's a lot more to talk about, but also there's like a lot longer of a fight, and so it can be a little bit more difficult to sort of schedule these things, structure them out. I did plan a slight script before this, however, I found that like fully scripting things out makes the commentary much more dull. And so it's sort of half scripted, half unscripted. So I'm sorry if it came across as rambly, and I'm really sorry again about the audio setup. But yeah, I hope this helped. I guess I should chill myself properly from now on. I'll probably work on a proper outro in a bit, but yeah, feel free to support me on Patreon. Oh god, that feels gross. I'm cutting. Bye. Love you. Take it easy.